by Acting Special Agent in Charge John Foley of the Boston Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Supervisory Special Agent in Charge Kieran Ramsey of the New Hampshire Federal Bureau of Investigation Office. To my right shoulder is Associate Attorney General Jane Young of the Criminal Justice Bureau of the Attorney General's Office. I'm also joined by Colonel Robert Quinn of the New Hampshire State Police, Captain Chris O'Coin of the New Hampshire State Police, and Lieutenant Wood of the New Hampshire State Police. At approximately 2 a.m. this morning, a tactical team placed a robot into the residence at 517 Post Road in Greenland, New Hampshire. That robot was able to detect 2 deceased individuals inside the residence. One of the individuals was a male by the name of Cullen Mutrie. He is 29 years old. He is a resident at that location, and we believe that he is the man that shot and killed Police Chief Maloney and was involved in injuring 4 other officers at the scene. We also identified a female deceased inside the residence. Her identity is not yet known, but we do believe that she was an acquaintance of Mr. Mutrie and that she was present at that location at the time of the shooting. Both of them had sustained gunshot wounds, and autopsies will be conducted on both of them later today. At this point in time, we believe that those gunshot wounds were sustained either as a double suicide or a potential murder-suicide, but that is the focus of our investigation. As you know, this incident took place at approximately 6 p.m. last evening when the police officers and Chief Maloney arrived at the residence. They were there to execute a warrant. The 4 injured police officers from the 4 police departments in New Hampshire were all assigned as members of the Attorney General's Drug Task Force, and they were acting in that capacity at the time of the warrant at the location. As you know, and as we mentioned, they attempted to gain entry into the residence when they arrived, and as they attempted to gain entry into that residence, gunshots were fired and the officers were struck. Following the incident, tactical teams arrived and attempted to begin negotiations with the individuals inside the residence. The tactical team was able to initially gain brief contact with Mr. Mutrie and had some brief conversation with him, but that conversation ended shortly thereafter, and for a long period of the evening, there was no contact with the individuals inside the residence. Negotiators at that time were attempting to make contact with him inside the residence, but were unsuccessful to do so, were unable to do so, and therefore, at approximately 2 a.m., a decision was made to place a robot and to breach the door to get inside the residence. This has been a tragedy in the state of New Hampshire this evening, and our thoughts and prayers go out to Police Chief Maloney and all the friends and loved ones of the officers that have been injured, and all of the friends and family of the Greenland, New Hampshire Police Department and the New Hampshire law enforcement community. We extend our deepest sympathies to those that have been involved and injured in this matter. This morning, an investigative team from the New Hampshire State Police will begin to process the crime scene at the residence. I expect that that will take place for most of the day. Autopsies will be performed on the individuals that were located inside the house, and we will continue with the investigation to learn all of the facts and circumstances surrounding what occurred last night. I'd be happy to take your questions.
How are the surviving officers? How are they?
The surviving officers remain in the same condition as we had described last night, so there has been no change in any of their condition.
When's awaiting surgery, or was awaiting
last
surgery, correct?
That's correct, and he is still awaiting surgery, so there's no change in the condition of any of the 4 officers since our last update.
Why was that chief alone?
Two remain hospitalized in the intensive care unit, and 2 have been released and have left the hospital.
Why was the chief there in that situation? Why was the chief on this raid?
The Greenland Police Department was assisting the Attorney General's Drug Task Force in executing the warrant.
But why specifically the chief? The guy 9 days away from retirement and the highest ranking member of the department, why would he go along on a high-risk drug raid? This is a guy who has a violent past.
What I can tell you at this time is that the Attorney General's Drug Task Force was executing a warrant. Several members were there. We were in the community of Greenland, and the police chief was involved in assisting with the execution
What type
of that
of
warrant.
warrant were you executing at the time?
It was a search warrant.
Were there reports of gunfire at all after the initial interaction between the suspect and the officers?
The reports of the gunfire coincided with the attempt of the officers to gain entry into the residence.
But nothing later that would possibly give you a timeline at this point in terms of a murder-suicide or double suicide?
No, and before we can confirm what happened inside the residence after the shooting, we are going to need to complete a review and detailed execution of the scene. At this time in time, at this point, we can't really say.
But there was
what occurred
contact
following
with
the
them
shooting.
knowing they were alive immediately after the shooting?
That's correct. As I stated, there was brief contact between negotiators and Mr. Mutrie a short time following the shootings were reported.
Was he licensed in
Was the
that
woman
firearm?
armed as well when the officers arrived?
I don't know the answer to that question. We're going to have to process the crime scene to determine that.
Was he
How many
licensed to have
weapons?
firearms?
I can't speak to that question right now.
How many weapons were there?
Until we get into the crime scene and actually process it, that has not yet begun. So until we get in there and can really obtain that, we're not going to have that
Had the
information.
chief participated in any other raids on this level?
I don't know the
before?
answer. I don't know the answer to that.
Can you comment where the chief was shot? Did he die on scene? Did he die in the hospital? Where on the body was the fatal blow?
I can't provide you that information. Autopsies will be forthcoming that will provide us with more information about the manner and cause of
Can
death.
you describe the robot that gained entry, the forcible entry, it knocks down the door, then it goes in? Can you describe how that works?
It's a robot that's designed to enter the residence, and it can project video so that the officers can know what's occurring. I can't give you the specifics as to what type of robot it was, but I'm sure that the state police officers might be able to assist that with you following the press conference.
Do you know who the woman is and just, you're not releasing her identity, or you do not know who she is?
We have not confirmed her identity, so at this point in time, we do not know who she is, but we do believe that she was an acquaintance of Mr. Mutrie, who was with him at the time of the shooting.
Did anybody live in the house with Mr. Mutrie?
I don't know the answer to that question. We know that he was a resident. Whether or not he was living there with other individuals is something that we will be working on in terms of background information today.
Can you tell us anything that Mutrie might have said to negotiators when they first made contact?
No, I cannot.
Are folks being allowed back in their homes in that area? I know some folks were evacuated.
We will have some processing going on. I do want to extend my thanks to the Greenland community. We did evacuate a number of homes, and the community was most gracious and understanding with what was taking place there. So our efforts will be to get those residents back into their home as soon as possible. Certainly many that were evacuated for safety reasons, that has subsided, and our goal will be to get them all back into their homes just as soon as we can.
Did the suspect at any point leave the residence overnight? There had been some reports he may have been in the woods and then possibly returned home.
We don't have any information that would suggest that, but obviously, as we process the scene, we'll learn more about what occurred.
And do you consider this female a suspect at all in this, or simply somebody who happened to be there and witnessed it?
We know that she was an acquaintance inside the home at the time of the shooting. We're going to need to process the crime scene to get a better understanding of exactly what happened.
Roads were closed, are they reopened again?
I don't know the answer to that question.
You've said this is a tragedy, obviously. How are you dealing with this within the law enforcement? Many of these officers are very close with one another.
We have a police chief that has died this past evening. We have 4 officers that have been injured. The law enforcement community in New Hampshire is certainly grieving this morning. But they have come together, federal, state, and local agencies, to do the job that law enforcement officers do every day to secure the safety and protection of our citizens. And I'm proud of the work that they have done during the past day.
Can you run down which
This is the first time that a New Hampshire police officer has been killed in the line of duty? And I mean, a police chief? Do we know if this is the first time?
No, it is not.
No, it's
And we
not.
can get you specific information on that.
And can you run down one more time which communities the other 4 officers are from?
Certainly. They are from the Dover Police Department. They are from the Newmarket Police Department. the Rochester Police Department and the University of New Hampshire Police Department.
Can you please confirm their names as well?
Yes, we have that information. I'd be glad to get that to you following. the press
Michael,
release.
can you just talk about what the chief or some of these other officers who had gone to the residence, what they were wearing at the time? Did they have any type of protective gear on? I mean, obviously this was a situation that this gentleman, from what we know so far, has been known to law enforcement officials, so it sounded like, were there any precautions taken beforehand?
We're still in the process of gathering that information. They were there to execute a warrant. I'm not at liberty at this point in time to talk specifically about what apparatus they were wearing.
Mutrie had a record, right? Mutrie had a record, is that correct? An arrest record prior to this?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to the criminal record at this
And
point in time.
how many members were on the team total that went in serving the search warrant?
There were multiple officers that were there present to serve the search warrant.
10, 12, just a general estimate?
Multiple police officers were there. Obviously, 4 were injured. The police chief was there, and there were several other officers present at
You
that
said
time.
this was part of the Attorney General's task force. What's standard procedure for when they execute a search warrant like this? Do they have protective gear on?
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into the specifics. We're
Right.
continuing to conduct that investigation, but obviously we will be doing a comprehensive review of the background leading up to the
What's the
to
standard
execution.
procedure in a situation like this when they're members of your task force?
And that investigation will be ongoing.
Mike, can you say autopsy again on the chief? Was that scheduled for today? Is that later this weekend?
It is scheduled for today, and I do not have the specific time. That will take place in Concord at the office of the chief medical examiner at Concord Hospital.
Do you have any idea when the funeral will be?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any idea when the funeral will be?
I do not.
This community is clearly grieving. Are there things being done for the community? Are schools closed today for folks who maybe are not connected directly to the police department but are having difficulty grasping this?
Yes, and there will be extensive efforts to ensure that the community, that the police departments, and that all of the citizens that have been affected by this have the peer-to-peer support, the counseling, and any assistance that they need in coping with this tragedy. So certainly right now, we are focused on ensuring that we do have the appropriate crisis intervention teams available to assist the officers, their families, and anyone else that may need help in coping.
And schools, they're closed today?
I cannot confirm the status of all the schools in the, do you know this, Bob? The elementary school is closed.
Michael, was there a note found or any type of indicator as to any possible reason the suspect might open fire? Was there some type of exchange beforehand, or was this sort of instantaneous?
Until we get into the home and conduct a search of the residence, we're not going to be in a position to know any of that information.
Can you confirm if Mr. Mutrie was at one point employed with the Hampton Falls Fire Department?
I cannot confirm that.
Did you say Mutrie was the lone gunman, the lone shooter?
I stated that we believe that he is the man that shot and killed Police Chief Maloney.
And all 4 officers.
And that he was involved in the injuries sustained by the 4 officers.
Do you expect the other 2 officers to make a recovery, a full recovery?
We extend our thoughts to them, and we will certainly keep you apprised of their condition as it proceeds forward today.
Were they shot inside the home, or like on the front yard, or?
We won't know the specifics of that until we do a comprehensive crime scene diagram and investigation. It's fair to say that we believe that they were shot as they were attempting to gain entry to the residence.
I know you already indicated that in New Hampshire's history, a police chief has been killed in the line of duty before. This many officers shot in one incident, do you know how this relates to incidents in the past?
I'm not aware of another incident in which we have had a police chief that has been killed and 4 officers injured at the same time. Thank you all very much.